There's a question that defines your entire life, and most people never stop to ask it. When you encounter an obstacle, when life puts a boulder in your path, what do you see? Do you see a problem, something blocking you from where you need to go, something unfair that shouldn't be there? Or do you see an opportunity, a teacher, a test designed specifically for you? Because here's what I've learned: the obstacle is the way. The thing blocking your path doesn't just happen to be in the way, it is the way. The challenge you're avoiding, that's not stopping you from reaching your destination. That challenge is your destination. Today, I'm going to share an ancient story about a wise king who taught his entire kingdom this truth. A story about a boulder, a road, and the moment when everything changes. This story is thousands of years old, but the lesson, it's as urgent today as it was then, maybe more so. Because right now, there's an obstacle in your life. You know the one I'm talking about, the problem you're avoiding, the challenge you're postponing, the difficulty you're trying to go around instead of through. And until you understand what this king understood, that obstacle will keep showing up. Different forms, same lesson. This is the story of the king and the road, and it will change how you see every challenge for the rest of your life. Long ago, in a prosperous kingdom nestled between mountains and sea, there lived a king who was known not for his armies or his wealth, but for his wisdom. King Aldrich had ruled for 30 years. He had seen his kingdom grow from a small collection of villages into a thriving center of trade and learning. But as the years passed, he noticed something troubling. People had become comfortable, perhaps too comfortable. They had good roads, strong walls, fertile fields. Life was predictable, life was safe, life was easy. In that ease, something essential had been lost. The merchants would complain about the slightest inconvenience. The craftsmen would abandon a project the moment it became difficult. The young people would give up on their training at the first sign of struggle. When the road was smooth, everyone traveled, but when the path became rough, they turned back. King Aldrich understood something his people had forgotten. He understood that character isn't built in comfort. Strength isn't forged in ease. Wisdom isn't found on the smooth path. So the wise king decided to teach his kingdom a lesson about obstacles, a lesson about challenge, a lesson about the true nature of the path. Late one night, when the moon was hidden behind clouds and the streets were empty, the king summoned his most trusted guards. He gave them a strange command, one that would seem foolish to anyone who overheard. "Take the largest boulder you can move," he said, "and place it in the middle of the main road, right in the center where everyone must pass." The guards were confused, but they obeyed. By dawn, a massive boulder taller than a man, wider than a cart, sat squarely in the middle of the kingdom's busiest road. And then the king waited. Hidden in the shadows of a nearby building, disguised as a common peasant, he waited to see what his people would do. The next morning, just after sunrise, the first traveler approached the boulder. It was a wealthy merchant, riding a fine horse, pulling a cart full of goods for the market. He saw the boulder from a distance. He slowed his horse. He stopped. For a moment, he just stared at it as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. And then, without a word, without even dismounting his horse, he turned around and took a longer route. "Ridiculous," he muttered. "Someone should do something about this." Notice what he said. Someone should do something. Not I should do something. Someone. An hour later, a group of young soldiers approached on their morning run. Strong men, capable men, men trained to overcome obstacles. They saw the boulder and stopped. One of them kicked it experimentally with his boot. "Too heavy," he declared. The others nodded in agreement, and together they decided to change their route. Then came a nobleman in an elegant carriage. He ordered his driver to stop. He leaned out the window, looked at the boulder with disgust, and said, "This is outrageous. The king should maintain these roads better. Turn the carriage around." The king, standing nearby in his peasant disguise, heard every word. One by one, dozens of people approached the boulder. Farmers, tradesmen, students, families. Each one stopped. Each one stared, and each one made the same choice. They went around it. Some complained loudly about how inconvenient it was. Some blamed the king for not maintaining the roads. Some blamed the gods for their bad luck. But not a single person tried to move it. They saw the obstacle as something that shouldn't be there, as an interruption to their journey, as a problem for someone else to solve. They didn't see that the obstacle was the journey. They didn't understand that this boulder wasn't blocking their path. It was their path. But then, as the sun began to climb higher in the sky, someone different approached. Someone who would see what everyone else had missed. Name was Elena. She was a peasant girl, no more than 16 years old. She worked in the fields from sunrise to sunset, helping her elderly father tend their small plot of land. Elena was carrying a heavy basket of vegetables to sell at the market. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't anyone important, at least, not in the eyes of the kingdom. When Elena reached the boulder, she stopped, just like everyone else. She set down her heavy basket. She wiped the sweat from her brow, and she looked at this massive stone blocking her path. But Elena saw something different than everyone else had seen. She didn't see an obstacle that shouldn't be there. She didn't see someone else's problem. Saw her problem, her challenge, her opportunity. Elena walked around the boulder, examining it from every angle. She touched its surface, tested its weight. Then, without hesitation, without calling for help, without waiting for someone else to take responsibility, began to push. The boulder didn't move, not at first. Elena pushed harder, her feet digging into the dirt, her arms trembling with effort. Still nothing. Stepped back, caught her breath, and adjusted her position. She found a better angle. She planted her feet more firmly, and she pushed again. Minutes passed, her muscles burned. Her hands scraped against the rough stone, sweat poured down her face. People walking on the alternate route could see her struggling. Some shook their heads, some laughed. "Foolish girl," they muttered, "wasting her energy." But Elena didn't stop, because she understood something they didn't. She understood that some paths can only be cleared by walking them. Some obstacles can only be removed by those brave enough to try. And then finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the boulder shifted, just an inch, then 2 inches, then slowly, painfully, magnificently, it began to roll. Elena pushed with everything she had. The boulder gained momentum. It rolled off the road and settled in the grass beside the path. The road was clear. Elena stood there, breathing hard, her hands bleeding, her dress covered in dust. And that's when she noticed something that made her gasp. In the exact spot where the boulder had been sitting, there was a small wooden box pressed into the dirt. Elena knelt down and opened it. Inside, glittering in the morning sun, were gold coins, more gold than she had ever seen in her life, enough to change her family's fortune forever. And beneath the coins, a note written in the king's own hand. "This gold belongs to whoever removes the boulder from the road. The obstacle in your path was placed there deliberately. Those who complained about it received nothing. Those who walked around it learned nothing. But you who took responsibility, who faced the challenge, who cleared the way not just for yourself but for everyone who comes after, you have earned both the treasure and the lesson." Elena looked up, tears in her eyes, and saw an old peasant watching her from nearby. But as their eyes met, she recognized something in his gaze, the wisdom, the authority. It was the king. King Aldrich stepped forward, no longer disguised, and smiled at the young girl. "You have shown more character in 1 hour than the wealthiest nobles in my kingdom. You didn't see the boulder as an obstacle to your path. You understood that it was your path." Word of Elena's reward spread through the kingdom like wildfire. People couldn't believe it. They gathered around the now clear road, staring at the spot where the boulder had been. The wealthy merchant returned. "I had important business to attend to," he protested weakly. "I didn't have time to move a boulder." The soldiers returned. "We thought someone else would handle it. It's not really our job." The nobleman returned. "I pay taxes. The road should have been maintained. Why should I have to move it myself?" Each one of them had a reason. Each one of them had an excuse. And each one of them watched as a poor peasant girl claimed the treasure they could have had. But the real treasure wasn't the gold. The gold was just a symbol. The real treasure was the lesson. King Aldrich gathered his people in the town square that evening, and he spoke to them about what they had witnessed. "Today you learned something I've been trying to teach you for years. When you encounter an obstacle, you have three choices. First, you can complain about it. You can blame others for putting it there. You can protest that it's unfair, that someone else should handle it, that you shouldn't have to deal with it. This is the path of the victim. Second, you can avoid it. You can take the longer route. You can wait for it to disappear on its own. You can hope someone else will clear it for you. This is the path of the coward. Or third, you can see the obstacle for what it truly is. Not a barrier to your path, but the path itself. Not a problem to avoid, but a teacher to learn from. Not a curse to complain about, but a blessing in disguise. The obstacle in your path is the path. The challenge you're facing is your destination. Because it's in the act of moving the boulder that you become the person worthy of the treasure. Elena didn't find gold under the boulder because she was lucky. She found it because she was willing to do what everyone else refused to do. She found it because she understood that the obstacle was her opportunity. From this day forward, remember, every obstacle is a test, every challenge is a teacher, and the treasure you seek, it's always hidden beneath the thing you're most afraid to face. Now let me bring this ancient story into your life, because right now, today, you have a boulder in your road. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a skill you need to learn but find too challenging. Maybe it's a fear you need to face but keep putting off. Maybe it's a relationship that needs healing, a business that needs starting, a habit that needs breaking, a dream that needs pursuing. What have you been doing? Be honest. Have you been complaining about it, blaming circumstances, waiting for the obstacle to move itself? Have you been taking the longer route, telling yourself you'll deal with it later, hoping it will somehow disappear if you just ignore it long enough? Or have you been like the soldiers, acknowledging the obstacle, maybe even touching it lightly, but ultimately deciding it's too heavy, too hard, too much? Here's what Elena understood that changed everything. The obstacle isn't in her way. The obstacle is the way. Think about it. Every great achievement in history came from someone who pushed a boulder that everyone else walked around. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't avoid the boulder of injustice, he pushed it. Malala Yousafzai didn't complain about the obstacle of oppression, she faced it. Your grandmother who survived the Great Depression, your grandfather who built a business from nothing, your teacher who believed in you when no one else did, they all had boulders. And they all pushed. The difference between people who transform their lives and people who just survive them is simple: how they respond to obstacles. Because here's the secret that the king understood: the boulder was never really about clearing the road. The road could have been cleared by the guards at any time. The boulder was about revealing character, about transformation, about becoming. Elena didn't find the gold under the boulder. She became the person worthy of finding gold by pushing the boulder. The obstacle doesn't just test who you are, it creates who you become. Every time you push against resistance, you build strength. Every time you face what you're afraid of, you build courage. Every time you persist when others quit, you build character. The treasure isn't under the boulder, the treasure is the boulder. The obstacle is the opportunity. The challenge is the teacher. The resistance is the gym that builds your soul. So what's your boulder? And more importantly, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to keep walking around it, taking the longer route? wondering why life isn't giving you what Elena received? Are you going to keep complaining about it, blaming others, waiting for someone else to clear your path? Or are you finally going to understand what the wise king was trying to teach? The obstacle is your path. The challenge is your opportunity. The boulder is your destiny. The king's test wasn't just for his kingdom, it's for you, right now, today. Somewhere in your life there's a boulder in the road. You know exactly what it is. It's the thing you thought about when I started telling this story. The challenge you've been avoiding. The conversation you've been postponing. The fear you've been feeding. You have a choice to make. The same choice Elena made. The same choice the merchant, the soldiers, and the nobleman failed to make. Will you walk around it, or will you push? Understand this. The treasure you're seeking, the success, the peace, the transformation, the breakthrough, it's not on the other side of the obstacle. It's not waiting for you after you somehow magically bypass the challenge. The treasure is under the obstacle, which means the only way to get it is to move the boulder. Stop waiting for the path to be clear. Stop waiting for the challenge to be easier. Stop waiting for someone else to move your boulder. The obstacle in your path is your path. The boulder in your road is your road. The challenge you're facing is not stopping you from reaching your destination. It is your destination. So get your hands dirty, plant your feet, find your leverage, and push. Push like Elena pushed. Push like your life depends on it, because it does. If this story changed how you see your obstacles, comment the word push below. Like this video if you're ready to stop avoiding and start moving. Subscribe for more stories that challenge you to become who you're meant to be. Remember what the wise king taught: the obstacle is the way, the challenge is the teacher, the boulder is the blessing. Now go move your boulder. Your treasure is waiting.